Hi, this is George Alger, and welcome to another segment of Our Ventura TV. Today we're going to be talking about finding your soulmate, and our guest expert is Tanii Carr, who is the author of 10 Weeks to Love. Welcome, Tanii.
Hello, it's a pleasure, George.
So let's find out what a soulmate is. I think a lot of people have an idea of it, but could we just define it?
For me, a soulmate means somebody that you can spend the rest of your life with and be happy about it. You know, longevity in marriages doesn't necessarily equate to happiness. Soulmate is somebody that is your best friend, that supports you in your endeavors, and between the two of you, you can accomplish your mutual and individual goals. Somebody that's very, very personal to you.
Well said.
Thank you.
Okay, so now let's get to what inspired you to write this book.
Well, I had been married twice before, and at the age of 45 found myself divorced for the second time, and I really figured that I was a failure in the love relationship department. I decided that that was unacceptable, and that despite my age, I wanted to have the kind of relationship that I always said that I wanted, but for some reason couldn't have. I basically set about doing that. I turned myself around in about 10 weeks, which is where we get the 10 weeks part. And at the end of that time, met the man of my dreams, and we knew it right away. We got married a month after we met, and that was 26 years ago. So I know exactly what I did to transform myself, and I wanted to share that information with other people.
Wow, do you think it's common to sort of know right away?
I don't think it's common. I actually think that it's more common than people give themselves credit for. I think we all hear that little voice that says good or bad. I don't think that we follow up on those inclinations, and I think we do ourselves a terrible disservice on the plus side and on the minus side. Okay.
And what factor do you think age plays in this game of dating, if any?
Ultimately, it doesn't. My husband's 16 years my junior, so it was kind of, I was 45, he was 29. That was a little hard for me to kind of fathom. But the truth is that our relationship is based on who we are as individuals and the good rapport that we have with each other, and the fact that we work really well together and enjoy each other's company. So age isn't that much of a factor.
Good. Now, when you're talking about being a little older and going back into dating, I mean, there's probably a number of common challenges that men and women would face to even get over the hurdle of wanting to date again. How might you encourage someone to address that?
One of the things that I've certainly had to take a look at, I had to for myself, was that we're the biggest problems in our dating experiences. The thoughts that we have, the thoughts that we bring forward from earlier relationships that maybe didn't work out so well, all of these things conspire against us to having that goal. Now, when you're older, it's just one more barrier or one more challenge to being open to finding somebody, whether it's a man or a woman. It doesn't really matter. This applies just as much to men as it does to women. So I think the key thing there is to examine the thoughts and considerations that we have about our age, about our prior failures, so that we can decide currently, in the moment, whether those things are relevant or not. And that was certainly one of the things that I had to address, and which allowed me to find somebody in my life at that point.
Good. So when you've sort of made that decision and acknowledged whatever failures have occurred in the past and you're ready to go on, what might be some first steps you'd recommend for someone?
I think certainly, first of all, follow the advice of a very dear friend of mine many years ago. She said, love finds you when you're doing those things that bring you the most pleasure. If you are doing the things in your life that give you personal pleasure, with or without a mate or a partner, you're more apt to run into people of like mind. The biggest single question that I get asked is, where do you find somebody? And it's practically irrelevant. I find that it was practically irrelevant. If your head is on straight, if you're good with yourself, that is much more important than going to singles groups or bars, which is not to say you shouldn't, but it is not the primary thing that gets you what you want.
Wow, okay. I think that's very good advice. And let's take a look at your experiences. So earlier on you had mentioned that you were able to make some changes pretty quickly. Do you want to identify some of those changes you made?
Absolutely. There's a fundamental change that I made first, which allowed me to make those other changes. And that fundamental change was really taking responsibility for the earlier failures, not blaming my ex-husbands. Second marriage was very contentiously ended, so I certainly would have been justified in complaining and poor me and I'm a victim. The moment that I decided that, well, for whatever reasons, I had participated in that relationship, and to that degree, all of a sudden, I felt better about myself, and I saw more opportunities to change. I certainly had to change my viewpoint about age. I certainly had to change my viewpoint about the games that I was playing that had sort of been running on automatic pilot. That was very insightful, and when I've talked to people about this, they kind of go, whoa, I didn't realize that I was doing this or playing this particular game. Do you want me to give you an example of a game?
That'd be great.
This was a game that I was playing that I really didn't recognize as such. I had a string of men friends who, let's just say, were difficult, okay? They were attractive and very bright, but they were difficult. And so I felt a certain pride in being able to handle them for whatever period of time I did. Except that those relationships always ended badly. They never ended well for me. And when I realized that for me, the win, the victory, wouldn't have happened if the guy hadn't been bad news. So here I am going, wow, I'm so proud. Why am I so proud? It just ended badly. So I had to really take a look at that and say, this is not a game worth playing. So this was, again, a matter of me taking responsibility for my life, for the condition of my life, and the games that I had been playing that I didn't know I was playing, and then make a new decision. Was it a game worth playing? Was it not? In that case, it was definitely not a game worth playing.
So I would bet that making this new decision and determining that, all right, you've been doing some things erroneously in the past and moving on, not only will help you get started again, but not make the same mistake. I mean, can I put that in there?
You can absolutely put that in there. I think it's just a matter of collecting all these unknowns, all these, as I say, I like to use the expression running on automatic, sort of games, thoughts, considerations. One of the decisions I had to make, and I really had to make this choice, was a relationship even worth having? The previous marriage had been pretty disastrous, and it left me kind of blah, you know, not feeling really good. And I had to sit down and first examine if I believed that it was, A, was it possible to have a decent relationship? And B, was it worth working toward? So just the general concept I had to view. I had some exercises that I created for myself and that allowed me to view that area and make the decision, which I finally did. So
Good. So I can see how those are some fundamental decision points.
Yes.
And let's say someone gets beyond those.
yes,
Okay. Now they're ready to tackle this game of dating again and
Yes.
finding a
Yes.
soulmate. What might be some basic advice you give them?
well, I think what's most important, and we forget this, is you need to be yourself. If you're not yourself, you're like a moving target. If you are a chameleon and you keep changing in a relationship to satisfy what you believe is needed in that relationship, even when you're dating, how can that person ever know who you are to have a relationship with? So it's kind of like a little bit like a moving target. One of the things that I found, one of my experiences, was that when I started dating again and meeting men and kind of had my criteria and all that, I would suddenly, let's say that I had a list of 10 things that was my wish list, okay? And I'd find somebody that fulfilled 2 or 3 of the things on my list, had to be employed, okay? Then I would suddenly abandon my list. And suddenly, this is the one. And I think most of us have done that, where we suddenly invest in that person the whole deal, okay? You are the one, and we get very significant about that. And one of the lessons that I learned was, nah, don't do that. You can do it on the small issues, but if what you want in a relationship is important, then it's worth going for, and you don't have to settle. That's probably something I would tell people, because too often we settle for something less than what we really, really want. And then we end up being unhappy, and we're only postponing the inevitable of unhappiness and things not working out.
Good point. Now, when you list out these attributes that you would
Mm-hmm.
consider to be ideal in a relationship, I mean, is there some guideline on how many? Because I imagine you could write a whole bunch or very few.
Yep. Yes, there are some things here. First of all, I don't recommend, and I've written about this, but I tell people, a lot of us have written those lists, and then it didn't pan out. So what the heck was wrong? It's not the process of doing a list. The problem is that you make a list with still all this old garbage, all these old thoughts, all these old viewpoints, and they enter in and they end up being on the list. So we tend to repeat ourselves because we didn't examine what went before. When you do your list, I graded it. I'd say, oh, now in my case, I wrote for 2 pages, okay? Some people don't do that, and it's neither here nor there. But I had to grade all of the things that I was after, all of the attributes. Certain things certainly were more important to me than other things. If they wanted to eat pizza in bed, I'm sorry, that's, doesn't take any points. But it's something that had to do with how we would resolve issues was really important to me. It was important to me that my husband was ethical. And how did I know that? Because one of the clues was that the first time I met him, he spoke well of his ex-wife. I mean, good heavens, I'm looking at this person going, who are you? I mean, guys don't do that usually, or don't very often. So anyway, about the list, I did it on a grading system. It doesn't really matter how many things you put down there, but you should assess which of the really important things, because some of that stuff you can do without.
Good. So in grading, maybe 3 points, or would you?
Yeah, 10 points, for heaven's sake. I had some issues that were really important to me.
Okay.
Other issues that, 1 or 2 pointers.
So in other words, if you make a list of, let's say, 20 items that you would look for in a relationship, you might make a grade of, 10 values for each one. And some are going to have the highest value and some are going to have the lowest.
That's correct. And then you can do without those. The process of dating is an interesting process. I remember when I started dating again, because I had so much confidence that this person was out there for me, and that if I was seeing somebody and it didn't pan out, there wasn't some big, huge, I've been rejected. I didn't feel a real big sense of loss, because I really knew in my heart that there was this person out there that would be the right person for me. We're getting back to the soulmate concept. And so when I would date, if it didn't work out, I was very open in my communication, because I wasn't worried about the loss. If I was attracted to somebody, I don't mean that I jumped all over people, I didn't. I wanted to make it comfortable for that person as well to communicate with me. And I didn't feel that going there and saying, hi, sexy, I think, this isn't going to work. But I would say, I'm kind of attracted to you and you're really fun. What do you think about that? And they would tell me honestly, and then it was like, all those people became friends, by the way. All those men became friends, just not that special friend. So the dating can be interesting, but again, it goes back to being confident in yourself, feeling that you're okay. I think most people don't have a terribly high opinion of themselves, especially if they've had losses. And I hate to see people unhappy when they could be really, really happy with the right person.
Good. Now, we're just about out of time, but I'm wondering if you could comment on the 10 weeks.
The 10 weeks, it doesn't have to be 10 weeks. Although one of my major criteria that had 10 points on it, on my list, was that I would see in this person what they saw in me really quickly. I was 45 at the time. I'm 70 now. I did not want to take years and years to find out if this person was going to work or not. So the 10 weeks was part of my game plan, and I believed that I could do it. And by gosh, I want to tell your listeners, though, your viewers, don't give up. If you've had losses, please do not give up. Life can be wonderful and grand with the right person, and maybe I can help in some way.
Wow. Well, that's a nice summating message.
There you go.
All right, well, before we end, could we get a website that people might be able to go to for more info?
Absolutely. It's the requisite www.10, WEEKS, weeks, 2, and then LOVE.com. So it's 10 weeks 2, 2, love.com.
Great. Thank you very much, Tanii.
It's been a pleasure.
All right, so this is George Alger signing off for this segment of Our Ventura TV. Until we meet again.